Hi, everyone. I'm Rabbi Jonathan Klein, and I've been asked to do a little vignette on Labor Day. I am serving a congregation in Bakersfield, but for a long time, I worked as a worker justice advocate, supporting economic justice for working people in Los Angeles. And it's in that context that my dear friend, Rabbi David Lazar, asked me to do a little vignette for this Labor Day. And I thought immediately of how there's been this attack against this Jewish tradition of Tikkun Olam. People have said, oh, it's not really a real thing from tradition. And there's been this drip, drip, drip of attack against this core value of commitment to worker justice and to economic justice in general. There's no doubt, if you read Heschel's Prophets, book, The Prophets, which was, I believe, his dissertation, that the prophets are absolutely livid at the treatment of the most vulnerable people. It is a core value. It is something that is ingrained in this identity of Judaism, this core part of who we are. And it's in that spirit that I wanted to share with you an example of how this rewriting of history that suggests that somehow we are not about justice or not about social justice, despite the fact that the Torah says, tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue. And of course, the comment is that we should be just in our just causes, that we don't just win, but we actually create a better world, not by might and not by power, but by your spirit, according to the book of Zechariah. Well, these are all prophetic sources, but what did 21st or 20th century Jews, American Jewry, how did they embody these core values? Yes, back in, I think it was 1940, there was an overwhelming support for Roosevelt by the Jewish community. I think they voted 90% for him over his opponent. There's always been this idea within American Jewry. But I really wanted to give an example from this book. This is called the Union Prayer Book, which was written in 1940. This was published in 1940. This was, as my professor David Ellenson has said, the Bible of his mother. There were two Bibles. There was the regular Bible, and then there was the Union Prayer Book. And in this, you'll find this amazing thing on page 45. And I'm going to read this text that was part of the evening service for Sabbaths. It says, O Lord, though we are prone to seek favors for ourselves alone, yet when we come into thy presence, we are lifted above petty thoughts of self. We become ashamed of our littleness and are made to feel that we can worship thee in holiness only as we serve our brothers in love. How much we owe to the labors of our brothers. Day by day they dig far away from the sun, that we may be warm, enlist in outposts of peril, that we may be secure, and brave the terrors of the unknown for truths that shed light on our way. Numberless gifts and blessings have been laid in our cradles as our birthright. And it goes on. Let us then, O Lord, be just and great-hearted in our dealings with our fellow men, sharing with them the fruit of our common labor, acknowledging before thee that we are but stewards of whatever we possess. Help us to be among those who are willing to sacrifice that others may not hunger, who dare to be bearers of light in the dark loneliness of stricken lives, who struggle and even bleed for the triumph of righteousness among men. So may we be co-workers with thee in the building of thy kingdom, which has been our vision and goal through the ages. So again, this is from 1940s, probably originally in the 1910s, actually. The line that I want to pull out here is this idea that they, day by day, they dig far away from the sun that we may be warm. Well, what on earth could this be about? And the editors and the commentators who have looked at this have said, you know, people from that time period immediately know what this is. This prayer has been commonly referred to as the coal miner's prayer. And why? Because we have this idea of people digging deep into the hills, right? Dig far away from the sun that we may be warm. Well, what Jews were coal miners in the early 20th century? almost none. We were all living in New York and Philadelphia and Chicago and in other urban areas. Maybe some of us came through Galveston, but we definitely were not embodying the coal miner experience. So the Union Prayer Book, the prayer book of the Reform movement that really took hold in America, made a big statement here about absolute commitment and appreciation for people that are totally not them. It reminds me in the 70s and in the 80s of this farm worker movement in the United States, where rabbis and other clergy really gravitated toward the well-being of the grape growers. And it's consistent with all of our long-time commitment to justice. So as we enter into this new year of Rosh Hashanah of 5782, part of the act of Teshuvah is to return to our core values. There's that wonderful song by Shlomo Carlebach, alav shalom, who says, return to who you are, return to what you are. And that is who we are. We're a people that is driven by compassion for those who are working in coal mines, in the grape fields, in faraway places, going to war to protect our society, which I think was a part of this prayer book as well. Of course, in 1940, we were getting ready for our involvement in World War II. So my prayer for us as we go through this period of Rosh Hashanah is that we also return to our communal strengths, to our value of justice and the dignity of all people. So with that in mind, I wish you a Shana Tova U'Metuka, a year that is sweet, but also a year that is renewing for you and for your whole families. Amen.